Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the new Form 7200. I'm Yonina Scheinweather at Viventium, the Consulting Director of Compliance Services. And what I'd like to explore with you today is how to get your advanced credit payments. That's what the 7200 is all about. It's the new kid on the block. It's a brand new form that never existed before. Now, as a result of COVID-19, we had modifications to a lot of our long-standing old players to the 941. There's going to be modifications to the W-2 that we're filing at the end of the year. But the 7200 is a whole new animal, brand new form that the IRS created in honor of COVID-19. And the purpose of creating that form was really to help the employer community, the business community, get money when it needs it most. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at together today. So first thing is just, here's the form. This is it. Form 7200. It's a one-page form, very compact, not a lot of complexity here, but a lot of concepts. A lot of new concepts that once we're able to wrap our heads around them, it'll be like, oh, it's a breeze. This is easy. Just a new way of getting used to thinking about things. So the name of the form is Advanced Payment of Employer Credits, and we're going to talk about what exactly those employer credits are. And these are only credits due to COVID-19. You can't use the 7200 to get credits for other types. You can't use it for the work opportunity tax credit, or for any type of research development credits you might be getting. It can only be used for COVID-19 credits. Let's talk about a couple of highlights of the form. First of all, it's a form that's filed by you as often as you want during a quarter, or as often as you have advanced credits. It's not like it's a one-time a quarter deal. You can send it in if you have advanced credits on every payroll. And we'll talk about what advanced credits are, but if you have them on every payroll, you can send this form in with every payroll. And when I say send it in, there's only one way to submit Form 7200 to the IRS, and it's not electronic, it's not even magnetic media, it is good old-fashioned fax. This is the way the IRS has asked and is requiring employers to file the form. It can only be faxed to the IRS. No other method. Do not put 7200 in the mail. But you can fax it as often as needed in order to get your advanced credits. How soon after you file Form 7200 will you get your money back from the IRS? The instructions and the guidance do not give any timeline. Certainly, those of you who have used the form already, a good percentage of you have seen checks coming from the IRS, but there is no official commitment to time. So we can't say, well, 6 to 8 weeks passed, it's time to call the IRS. I wish I could tell you that if you don't hear from them within 6 to 8 weeks, call. But the IRS has not promised any timeline. It's probably a best practice, of course, to track the dates that you're faxing your 7200s. And within 6 to 8 weeks, if you have not received any response, I would go ahead and reach out to them with a phone call, just as a best practice. But it's not that, they promised that within a certain amount of time you were going to get the check. And another important thing to keep in mind about this form is that it's your, so to speak, last resort, meaning if you are holding monies that you can use as credits, and we'll talk about how that might happen soon, but if you have COVID credits in your pocket, you first have to use those COVID credits to offset any of your payroll tax deposits. So just by way of example, let's say you've been withholding money from your employees and their Social Security or whatever, and you have, let's say, $5,000 for this payroll that you're ready to go and deposit to the IRS. And then you check your COVID credits and you see that you have $4,000 of COVID credit. So you say, all right, well, I'm going to make my $5,000 deposit, and then I'll send in 7,200 and ask for that $4,000 to be sent to me as an advance credit, right? Wrong. If you have to deposit $5,000, then you first have to take your $4,000 of credit and offset it against your deposits. Don't make those deposits. You have to offset first. Now, if you've already offset as much as you can and you still have additional credits, that's when you resort to Form 7200, form of last resort. How will all this work on the 941? We're going to take a look at how the 7200 and the 941 reconcile together. But first, let's start talking about 4 crucial terms that the 7200 uses. And the first one, like I mentioned at the beginning, are the employer credits due to COVID-19. What exactly is this about? What employer credits are there due to COVID-19? There are 3 of them. Under the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, that's what we call the FCRA, FFCRA, employers, you, are required to provide both paid sick leave and paid family leave to employees who are out due to various specified COVID-related reasons. Now, for more information about your obligations and your rights under this law, the FCRA, I'd refer you to our recorded webinar about the relief available and the coronavirus, the COVID-19 relief webinar that we have on our viventium.com website for more details. Not going to go into a lot of detail now, but let me just say, if you paid sick leave or family leave to your employees that you were required to pay under FCRA, the amount that you paid to those employees is an employer credit due to COVID-19, meaning the IRS is going to reimburse you for what you paid. And even more than that, if you paid health insurance to those employees who were out on sick leave or family leave due to COVID-19, that health insurance amount that you paid is also an employer credit due to COVID-19. So those are the first 2 kinds. I said there were 3. There's the paid sick leave under FCRA. There's the paid family leave under FCRA. Those are the first 2 kinds of employer credits due to COVID-19. And then there's one more, and that's called the Employee Retention Credit. That was enacted by the CARES Act. If you are paying wages to employees on retention, meaning you don't have work for them due to COVID-19, but you're keeping them on payroll anyway, or if you're a small company, less than 100, even if you do have work for them, you can still count their wages toward the Employee Retention Credit, up to $10,000 of wages for the year, which means you get a 50% credit for those wages. So if you pay an employee $10,000 of wages, even though you don't have work for him, but you're keeping him on payroll, then you get $5,000 of that back as an employer credit due to COVID-19. So again, in summary, this was just very brief. Again, for more details, listen to our COVID-19 relief webinar. Number 1, paid sick due to COVID. Number 2, paid family leave due to COVID. Number 3, the employee retention credit. Those are the 3 credits due to COVID-19, and that's what you can use the 7200 to get. Now, why are we calling these advanced credits? Because really, if you do nothing, you're going to get these credits on your 941 at the end of the quarter. And the IRS is fine with that. You don't have to file 7200. You can wait, let it all come out in the wash. By the end of the quarter, you will get the credits back on the 941. That's the way the new 941 has been created. And by the way, the Viventium has a recorded webinar on the new Form 941 for you to take a listen to. But if you want to get that credit in advance, which is a great idea now, especially during these difficult times, you can do it by faxing Form 7200. Now, when we say the form is a cumulative form, what does that mean? And why does the IRS refer to previous filings? We're going to go line by line through the form. You're going to see they're going to make a reference to previous filings of the form. What do those concepts mean? Well, remember I said you can send in the 7200 whenever you have a credit to claim, as often as you want during the quarter. You can, but the information that you put down on your second 7200 is going to include the credits that you asked for on your first one. And if you file a third form, that will include the information on your first 2 forms. It's always cumulative. And when the IRS talks about previous filings, they mean the previous times that you sent in 7,200 this quarter. Only this quarter. Every quarter stands by itself. So let's see what that means. Let's actually take a look line by line through the form. And now that we have that little bit of a background, we'll be able to see better how to fill out the form. So at the top, it's your name and your address. And if you're using a third party that you want to authorize, and you're supposed to check off here which quarter you're asking for credits for. Again, each quarter stands as a unit by itself. You can't ask for second quarter credits in the third quarter. Don't try to ask for third quarter credits in the fourth quarter. Question: why is there no first quarter on this form? I just see 2, 3, and 4. Answer: because there were no credits in the first quarter. The whole idea of credits is it belongs to second quarter and forward of 2020. Now there's a little tip here underneath your basic information, and it says file form 7200 if you can't reduce your employment tax deposits to fully account for these credits that you expect to claim on your employment tax return for the quarter. That's your 941. So again, that's a lot of information in one sentence, but what they're saying is use the 7200 if you don't have tax deposits to reduce anymore. You can't reduce your tax deposits to fully cover the credits. That's what we said. So first reduce your deposits and then use the 7200. Now it says here, don't reduce your employment tax deposits and request advanced credits for the same amounts, for the same credits. No, there's no double dipping. If you do that, you're going to end up owing money plus penalty and interest to the IRS. And they tell you you will need to reconcile your advanced credits and reduced deposits on your 941. So that's important to know, that you have to be careful that whatever you're reducing deposits by, you're not going to include on this form. It's either or, and you have to do the reduced deposits first and then the 7200s. Okay, so the first thing they ask you is tell us about your tax return. What are you filing? Is it a 941? Is it a PR form? Is it a you know, is this coming from Guam or American Samoa? What type of 941s are you filing? Fine, check it off. Did your business start on or after January 1? If yes, meaning you're a new business, they're not going to ask you to fill out line C unless you've met certain conditions. And if you are an existing business, then they are going to want to know the amount reported on line 2, which is basically your total gross wages, your total payroll. So that's just informational, and the total number of employees that you have. Okay, so that's just tell us about your return. That's not where you're actually going to be calculating credits. Part 2 is the actual numbers amount. Enter your credits and the advance you request. So here's the 3 kinds, lines 1, 2, and 3. First of all, your total employee retention credit for the quarter. Now note, it's the total employee retention credit for the quarter, not the amount for the payroll or the payrolls that you're sending this form into. This is a cumulative form. So let's say with my first payroll, I had $100 extra credit that I want to get back, and I sent in a form for $100. Now I'm up to my second payroll, and I have $200. What do I put down on line 1? I put down $300. It's cumulative. The total employee retention credit for the whole quarter. Similarly, line 2, the sick wages paid for the quarter, also cumulative, and the qualified family wages paid for the quarter, and you're allowed to include your health expenses in there, and add it up, and that gives you line 4, your total credits. Now, the question is, of those total credits, how much have you already reduced the deposits? Okay, that goes on line 5. That's going to reduce the amount you're asking for in the 7,200. And how much have you already asked for on earlier forms this quarter? So in my example, we had 100 the first week, $200 the second week. We put $300 on line 1. But now on line 6, we're going to back out. We're going to put that first $100 down to back it out. That's what they want. They want the cumulative amount and then back out any amounts from previous filings, previous faxings of Form 7200 for this quarter only. And when we subtract those amounts out, that is the advance that you are requesting. And that's the whole form. And then you can designate a third-party designee, sign it, and fax it. Let's move on to one small caveat, and that is, and this was found in the instructions to the form, sometimes you will not get back what you expect to get back. If you have any past due amount with the IRS, not for payroll, for anything, could be for any federal tax liability that the IRS is aware of, or the federal records are aware of, they will apply any advances to that past debt before they forward them on to you. So you want to make sure that your history is good there. And just one last point, and that's the coordination of the 7200ths for the quarter and Form 941. Remember I mentioned on 941, everything comes out in the wash. Everything for the whole quarter gets reconciled vis-a-vis COVID. Well, there's a line on the 941, and again, we speak about this more if you want to listen, go ahead and listen to our recorded 941 webinar. But there's a line there that says, there it is, line 13F, it's in yellow. Tell us the total advances received from filing Form 7200. So you might think that you simply take that cumulative advanced amount, from all the forms, add them up, add the first form's advance, the second form's advance, the third form's, etc., and put it on line 13F. No, don't do that. That is not compliant. That's not what the IRS wants. They do not want the totals of all your line 8s of your Form 7200 on Form 941. What they want is, look at the wording again, total advances received from filing the form. Only the checks that you actually got from the IRS. Not what you asked for, but what you got. That's what goes on line 13F. So that's a little bit of a common misconception that sort of bring to your attention, and don't make that mistake because that will slow down your processing. I want to invite you once again to visit viventium.com, especially our COVID-19 solutions page. Explore the solutions, the resources that Viventium has to offer you. And I want to invite you as well to listen to other of our webinars regarding COVID-19 solutions. Thank you very much for your time today, and I wish you all much success in navigating COVID-19.